Can you go from being a glass back to an athletic freak? The answer is yes, and I'm going to tell you exactly about a client who worked with Different Breed to do exactly that. This client was called Jesse, and they came to us with a really severe back injury. They'd been dealing with it for about 4 months or so, and it was a bad one. We're talking couldn't bend over to tie their shoelace without worrying about throwing out their back, being in pain, lying in bed, and it was a big problem. Not only was Jesse's job pretty active, he works on ships and was training to be a sea captain, but he was also a skater and had been doing it most of his life, and he just couldn't do it anymore. And basically, he'd hit a breaking point. He was in pain, he couldn't do his job properly, and he was just fed up of not doing the things he enjoyed. So he came to us to turn that all around, and we did that by taking him through the 4-step process to recovering from an injury that you're going to use for pretty much all injuries, but this works particularly well for back injuries. Now it's 7 months later and he is out of pain and more athletic than he was before, smashing muscle ups, lifting weights, holding handstands, which is a pretty dramatic change, considering it's taken us less than double the time he was in pain to get him out. So how did we do that? Let's talk through it. Step 1 is restoring range of motion. And that is relatively pain-free range of motion. There is always going to be some discomfort in injury recovery, so it's worth keeping that in mind. But we are looking to restore normal ROM relatively pain-free. And this can seem quite intimidating, especially when you've picked up a back injury, a severe back injury at that. You feel like you don't want to bend over, you don't want to move, you don't want to do anything in case you make it worse. But stopping moving, avoiding the things that feel scary is actually what's going to limit you in the long run and stop you recovering. When we've got a back injury, we want to look to improve our functions of the back and the range of motion over them. So that is rotation, lateral flexion, extension, and rigidity. And we do this by taking exercises that fit those movement patterns, but don't really load them and don't really come with much risk and can be controlled completely by yourself. So a great example of this would just be a bodyweight Jefferson curl. Jesse started doing them partially, initially when he couldn't bend over, and very low effort, very low intensity, very low range, and that can build up until you're then able to move through that function completely. You can do the exact same thing with rotation by doing a bodyweight twist. You start off moving partially, going maybe a quarter of the way around, and then you build up to full range of motion over time. And that's step 1, restoring the range of motion. And at this point, Jesse isn't necessarily athletic, he's not necessarily training like normal, but day to day he's going to be feeling better because he's not going to be worried just tying his shoelaces. So this is a massive win in terms of quality of life post-injury. Step 2, rebuilding volume and load tolerance. Now, post-injury, your volume tolerance and your load tolerance is going to be down pretty bad. And obviously in Jesse's case, with such a severe injury, it was basically non-existent. So once we've restored pain-free range of motion, we need to then rebuild our ability to load and train those capacities with a meaningful volume. And this can only be done after step 1, of course, because you need to restore that range of motion. So for Jesse, a perfect example of this rebuild would be his squat. So as you can see from this clip of a Cossack, it was really hard for Jesse's hips to move through full range. So in that stage 1, we're just rebuilding that function. Once we've rebuilt that function, Jesse would then move on to something maybe like an air squat or a goblet squat, going through full range with a little bit of load. Over time, you'd up the load, you'd also up the number of sets, maybe the number of reps to increase the volume. And you would progress that all the way up to doing a barbell squat with a pretty decent weight. And as you can see now, Jesse is doing normal squats with a barbell at body weight or more comfortably. And that's from that rebuild. So stage 1, rebuild ROM. Stage 2, rebuild volume tolerance and load tolerance. It's worth mentioning in stage 2 of this rebuild, we're not looking to necessarily get to pushing heavy loads like doing an RPE 9 with a single on a deadlift, but we are looking to be able to do, a 4x5 at RPE 7. So this is a slow rebuild. We're looking to rebuild that volume and rebuild that load, but we're not looking to push high intensities. Step 3, returning to normal function. So we've just done stage 2. You've rebuilt some volume tolerance. You can now train a normal amount of volume, and you've rebuilt some load tolerance. You're not necessarily pushing maxes, but your body is now able to take a reasonable amount of training load through the movement patterns that were originally injured. In Jesse's case, the back movement patterns like twisting, flexing, that type of thing. But just being able to load those movement patterns a bit isn't good enough. We want to return to normal function. So after finishing stage 2, once you're able to take a normal amount of training volume and you're able to reasonably load every lift, not necessarily doing maximals, as I will say again, but able to put load into them decently, we are now looking to progress back to normal function. So we're going to start reintroducing power movements for those functions rather than just twisting gently to restore range or maybe doing a controlled cable twist. We're now going to start upping the pace a little bit. That might be a fast body weight twist. It might be some med ball throws. And we're going to slowly up that velocity that it's being exposed to and the intensity that it's being exposed to. We would, of course, do similar things with improving coordination. So for Jesse, one of the things he wanted to do was get better at calisthenics. A really good movement for general coordination and core rigidity is handstands. So we worked handstands in at this stage of rehab where obviously at stage 1, if he came down funny, it could be a problem. At stage 2, we're still rebuilding confidence in the body. Again, if you came down funny, it might be a problem, but it's also just not something we really want to jump into where there's so much going on. We want to have control and be able to really sensibly and safely progress the back functions. But at this stage, we're trying to push it a bit more. So handstands came in. And this was awesome because Jesse not only was able to help rehab his back doing the handstands, he actually unlocked his first handstand hold. So that is great. And it's really, really awesome. We would then be doing the same thing with rigidity. So you might be loading heavier deadlifts now, looking to build up at maybe a 3 at an RP7 and build that all the way to an RP9, RP10 in this stage. And what we should say at this point is this isn't going to be a linear process. You're not going to just go stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. You're going to go pretty well through stage 1, maybe have a flare up, dip back down, and then come through into stage 2. Maybe stage 2 gets better, and then it gets worse, and then it gets better, and then you get sick, and then it's going to wiggle its way. Then you get to stage 3, and stage 3 might be flying, and then you overshoot. Because like I say, we're trying to return to normal function now. So maybe you do get to that RP9 triple. And instead of it really being an RP9, you overload it a little bit, and that last rep creeps to RP10. It's just a bit much, and you set yourself back a couple of weeks, and you rebuild. So it's just worth keeping in mind at this phase, it's a little bit riskier, but that's part of the game, unfortunately. And at this point, we are just trying to do more complex movements. So power, plyos, twisting at speed, handstands, all that sort of fancier work that you would consider your baseline skills and the things you want to be doing in normal training should be coming back to normal here. And that is essentially recovery. You're back to square one. But we don't want to finish there. We want to move into step 4, which is function maxing. What do I mean by function maxing? Well, it's all well and good to be back where you were, and it's all well and good to be out of pain. In fact, that's great. But the reality is you got injured because your body simply wasn't capable of dealing with the load that was put on it by life or by whatever your injury happened in. Of course, you can't always out-train every injury. If someone stamps on the side of your knee's probably going to go, like bye-bye MCL. But if you hurt your MCL doing a lateral step and it was just a little bit too much, well, having a stronger leg, being able to deal with higher forces laterally is probably going to mean you don't get injured in that scenario again. So during this stage of function maxing, we want to be pushing everything to the next level. We want to push those tissue tolerances up. We want to push your athletic qualities further. We want to increase mobility, increase power, increase strength, and ensure that we're doing those in movements that involve the injured body part or the previously injured body part. Because at this point, we've gone back to normal. We are now really training just to push the boat out. So from this rehab perspective, this stage is necessary because, well, we want to avoid further injury and we need to increase our capacities to do that. But from a perspective of just enjoying training and enjoying life, there's no point getting out of pain if you then don't use the body that is now pain-free and feeling more athletic. So you want to go and push the things that you want to enjoy. As I've already mentioned, Jesse likes calisthenics. So this was the point where muscle-ups came back in. It's like, well, your back can deal with a bit of shaking around. You can put some force through that. If it goes a little bit wrong, you're not just going to get injured. So he started working muscle-ups. He went from banded all the way to unlocking his first muscle-up, which is absolutely awesome. And I mean, this is why function maxing is not just good for rehab, but so great for just realizing what you've done. Because what Jesse did was amazing. He went from 4 months in pain, unable to tie his shoelaces without worrying about it, to 7 months later, he's able to do a muscle-up. He's able to do a handstand. He's squatting without any pain. He's restored his range of motion. It's truly incredible. And that is how you go from a glass back to an athletic freak. You need to go through this 4-step process. You go through step 1, restoring range of motion. And for a back, as we've spoken about, that's rotation, flexion and extension, and lateral flexion, extension, and rigidity. If you hurt your elbow, for example, then that might be flexion, extension, twisting that way. But you'll always go through this stage of rebuilding ROM in whatever injury you've got. But in the case of a glass back, it's going to be those back functions. Step 2, we're then looking to rebuild volume and load tolerance. So we're not going wacko mode here. You actually might start off with 2 sets of 10 goblet squats with 3 kilos. And over time, you very slowly build that up to 5 sets of 5 with a barbell at 70. That's how you rebuild function and you rebuild load tolerance. And of course, this is the example of the back in Jesse's case, but if it was an elbow, it might be building up banded rotations. It might be building up bicep curls. It might be building from bicep curl to chin up. All sorts of things can happen there. But the main thing you need to focus on, the concept we're looking for at step 2, is rebuilding load tolerance and volume tolerance. Not trying to push maxes, just trying to get exposure. Then step 3, return to baseline. This is where we start rebuilding the ability to do some power, rebuilding the ability to do some higher coordination movements, like a handstand, rebuilding the ability to push to near maximal loads and higher effort things. And that is how we get back to baseline. That's how you could consider rehab done. But at Different Breed, we don't think rehab ends there. We want to move into step 4, function maxing, where we expand your capacity so you are less likely to get injured in the same way again, but also so you really make use of the pain-free, injury-free body you have developed through training and really pushing what you are capable of, unlocking things like muscle ups, backflips. Who knows? It's your world when you're function maxing, but you just want to start pushing the boat out and improving as much as you can. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope that was interesting for you. And if you want to get some results like Jesse, head down to the description, click the link and get in contact with us about coaching. We are here to help build healthy, happy, athletic humans who can live with the best possible quality of life. And if you're dealing with a glass back, you are certainly not doing that. So come on over, let us help you out. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe. I will catch you next time.